Hello everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough. I hope that you can see and hear me okay. Today, let me just move my camera up here. There we go. Today we are hanging out and we are talking all about the Hellsmiths of Hashut, the newest faction coming to AOS. I got my schedule wrong and I thought I had another week to do my video series. I scripted like 2/3 of it, but it kind of sprung up on me. Anyway, so I wanted to get something out there because I have been dying to talk about this army, and I know many of you have been dying to hear about it. Sorry, my mic's kind of set up for painting, which we're going to do here in a second. Games Workshop was kind enough to send me an advanced copy of the battle box, and I don't know if you saw it, but on the community page, one of my little dudes was showcased there. That was very humbling and very kind of them to showcase that. But yes, I'm going with sort of a subsidiary, I guess, hold to the big poster boys, the ones who are in purple. So I kind of leaned more into the wrought iron look than the purple kind of faded on the big plates or whatever. But I don't know, they were an immense amount of fun to paint. So what I'm going to do in this stream is in a second, I'm going to go to the downward cam, and I have, of course, the big bull boy, who is my favorite model, and I had to hold off on painting him because I wanted to do it with y'all. And I want to walk through the ways that this faction obviously plays. I have the battle tome next to me. I can answer whatever you want. But specifically, I wanted to talk about the ways that you can easily magnetize this faction to high hell, because it's really cool. There's several dual kits. I haven't tried it with the infantry and their hand weapons. It does not seem very difficult, but very doable on the big guys. So let's hop into that. We'll go to the downward cam here. I just have some chill beats kind of on repeat in the background. Let me know if they ever get annoying. I can turn it down or whatever. And I see some people pouring into the chat. Hello, everybody. Let me just get my mic here. Here is my battle tome for proof that I own it and or gots to here. I would love if anyone has broad questions to ask them, but I'm going to start giving your we'll say Uncle Doug story time synopsis of the faction and walk through essentially how the rules work from a very cursory level, kind of just chatting about it. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to be painting some stuff. Before I jump into those, I just want to point out, I'm going to point this out a few times as people jump into this stream, because I think it's important. This is our cannon, okay? The Torment Bombard, as I believe it's called, or Bombard Tormentor. The way that you build this thing, it is fully the same no matter which option you want to build, except for when it comes to what you plug on top of here. Now, if you look inside that gap right there, let me grab a brush here so I can point at it a little better with this white. This little semicircle is literally the only thing that stops it from being the Hell Rocket whatever battery. So, as you can see, I put a magnet on each side. One here, and one here. And on this guy, this is the inside of the Hell Rocket battery. Did the exact same thing. And she snaps right on there, perfectly. Once you push it down a little bit, it doesn't wiggle at all, but it's perfect. You just got to fill that little thing in. It could have gone just as easy as if you had filled that with green stuff and put a single magnet facing upward and then did the same on this end with the reverse polarity. But this came to me because once I had a magnet in there, I just decided to jam a thumbtack upside this cannon. This huge thing is hollow, so if you just slide it right in there, the thumbtack sticks right to it at the proper angle. And I was like, that's just perfect. I'm not going to change a thing. Also, I want to be able to like, wha, sha, 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 sha. Anyway, so I wanted to point out that is exceptionally easy to magnetize. You're just doing this. If you want it to be simple, fill it to where it's level with the actual cannon base, poke a magnet in there, and then do the same thing on the other side. Make sure the polarities all match, and you're set to go. And the other one for the bull, who is your other big character you're going to want to magnetize. Let me pull this off here. When you build this model, okay, you can see the magnet kind of reflecting right there. That circle is already hollow. I literally just took a little magnet on my finger, put some super glue on the edges, and went, and that was it. And then the way that the kit is normally built is where this magnet is. You can kind of see on the inside there where I'm pointing. 2 little pegs come up, and what you're supposed to do is clamp those pegs on that hole, and that'll give you the full range of how you can, pivot the arms. But I literally just clipped those pegs out, threw a magnet on one of those, and now you got that. Same thing, other arm. This is now the big mace arm, and he snaps right in there. And it is absolutely seamless because on both versions, this gauntlet that comes up the elbow completely covers any of the magnetization stuff. So he's pretty cool. I actually kind of like this version. This is the problem with like the classic Dreadnought in 40k, where you want the gun and the hammer because it looks so baller, but it's the worst, or it can't be done. Okay, so we're going to get into painting this guy. I just wanted to throw that out there as sort of a preparatory thing to add some value for folks who are just hopping in. Let's see, we got some... Let me get my paints out, and then I'm going to pivot over to the chat here. And we'll get cracking. Let's see, I got Dark Silver by Pro Acryl. Always by Pro Acryl. Love them. You know what the best is, though, is their Dark Silver, and then I just... Lead Belcher by GW. I know not everyone's a fan of it. I personally really enjoy Lead Belcher. Got a big old pot of it here sitting next to me. Let's see. I'm just pulling up the questions here I'm going to look at. First of all, hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Good morning, Pyromancer. Jesse Purvis, hey Doug. Almost done building all my Blood Angels. Cool. Awesome. Hope everyone's well in your family, buddy. How are the models to build? I will say these are some of the best models to build that Games Workshop has put out. I also have off to the side here the basic dude. It feels like a classic Fantasy Battles model, because even though there's a lot of poses, it is front torso, back torso, left arm, right arm, head. That's it. They all have shields. The only thing you're really changing is which arm they have, and then the heads are interchangeable with the way that their necks work. But my point being, I think, if you ever built some of those older kits where it's just like, you don't need instructions because everyone's the same kind of a thing. It was really simple to build. These guys, the cannon took a little bit of time to build, I'll admit. Not so much because it's a difficult build in any way, shape, or form. I just found it to be... when you're looking at the construction booklet, sometimes the angles of where things are... it just took me time to kind of dry fit it all together. But the actual assembly and construction was not bad in any way, shape, or form. I built everything in the kit. I don't think I had a problem with any of them. I'm trying to look around. Oh, there was one little heads up I can give. Your flag guy on the infantry, they have like 3 different kinds of toppers. The only heads up I have for this faction is some of those little toppers are really easy to accidentally snap as you're clipping them off of that, but that is like the most minor of things. Everything else was, fruits of my own problem making, which is like, how I got the pegs in there. I did workshop a little bit on how to get the Hell Rocket battery to kind of stand up straight without wiggling. Took some time, burning the midnight oil, really just putting my brain on all cylinders, but yeah. Let's see. Morning, Dr. Climacus. Hellsmiths when? No time soon, man. These are way... If you had told me that they were like, oh yeah, actually these are going to be Dwarves of Azir who like harness the power of angels and junk instead of demons, I'd be like, boo. Hashtag need more villains. Bad guys do it better. Let's see. Cannons that are hidden shivs. Yes, exactly right. Wait, for the bull, is both cannons interchangeable or just the one? So the way that the war scrolls are written is it has to have either both melee weapons or both cannons. But I made them both interchangeable so I could do whatever. I honestly, I was thinking about it for a split second before I was like, oh, these are actually super easy to magnetize. But I was thinking for a split second, I'm just going to have one of each weapon and tell my opponent what it is. Because I don't plan on having a ton of them, but this is actually just as easy. But yes, it's either a melee bull or a shooty bull, which does help keep it very organized in terms of weapon loadouts. But the model kit comes with everything you need for either one. Dr. Clanicus, I've been slowly pivoting to the Duncan paints. Big fan so far. I picked up my first one the other day because nobody had the green I was looking for, and I was like, it took me a second. I read this sign for his paints, and I was like, I think I know this guy's name. Where do I know him from? I was like looking at a Bob Ross sign, and we're like, I know this guy. Took me a second. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot that was his last name. Rhodes. I was like, oh yeah, I know him. I know the D-Man. Not personally, of course, but... let's see... Cameron, how do you like the models in person? I'm kind of mixed about them. I could not. Well, I don't actually have any of the new goblins or whatever they are, hobgrots. I am not super impressed with what I've seen of them. I want to see them compared to a bunch of the other hobgrots that already exist for Cruel Boys. Maybe I think splitting them together would be good. As far as the actual dwarves, I personally am going to be the guy who plays the bull and the cannon kind of army. That's just what I'm here for. We'll get into the rules in a second, but I think this army is the most reminiscent. If you enjoyed War Machine and Hordes back in the day, you're going to like this. You're going to like the way you destroy the realms. I guarantee it. And that's kind of my playstyle, but it relies a lot on these big bull guys. So, as far as the scale goes, somewhere I thought I had an old dwarf model. Maybe I don't. Oh, you know what? Give me 1 second. I think I actually have an original dwarf. Okay, so we know there has been some scale creep between these new Chaos Dwarves and the ones that are old enough to be your mother. But let's put these guys... Let's see, do I have an extra base laying around for scale purposes? Let me show you the leader of one unit compared to the leader of another. So, try to make this as clear as possible. So we got this guy. This is our Captain Chorf. This is the old boss man. I'm trying to make him level so you don't see the base as much, raising him up. But he's, you know, a solid, he's at least standing up much straighter, that's for sure. Which I can say universally about all the sculpts here. They all stand so much more straight than these old world sculpts. I actually put, this is the Zardron shield on the hero guy. I was going to try doing some cool kit bashing. This is one of the optional weapon arms, and as you can see, it plugs directly into scale with his other arm. I mean, he doesn't look wrong or anything like that. He just looks stuntier than the stunty boss, which, I don't know, maybe if their one genetic advantage is they got slightly taller underground, maybe that's cool. Almost there. As long as humans remain taller, it works. Exactly right. Yeah, that's the thing. They're still notably dwarves, but I don't feel... This guy also has the benefit of a hero rock. Yeah, I don't know. It's got a guy who doesn't have a hero rock. Let's see how that looks. That looks much closer. Okay. I dig it. Yeah, that's the shield he has. But I think he comes together pretty well. So... okay. Answer any more questions before I get into story time? Thank you for covering how to magnetize both war machines, since that was by far my biggest question on the kits. Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, the second I opened the box, I was like, oh man, I gotta talk about this. This is ridiculously cool. In the pictures of the army, even with their tall hats, they look shorter than fire slayers. That's actually a fairly good point. If you didn't find the other dwarfs with fire slayers anachronistic in terms of scale, this is not going to bother you. I'm a big War Machine fan. Okay, sweet, awesome. I love the comments. Please keep them rolling. I'm going to hop into painting this guy and talking about the background, and I'll pause here and there for story time to continue. So... This book presents us with a completely new perspective on the history of the mortal realms, which is fantastic. However, it comes from deeply unreliable narrators, which makes it even better. So the story we get is essentially one where the history of the people is being recounted. It's almost like a written account of someone writing down what they perceive to be the legacy of Hashut. And the story goes as such. Many, many moons ago, when the dwarven race first awoke here in the mortal realms, there were actually 4 dwarven gods instead of 2. We have Grungni and Grimnir, but now we also have Valea, who we knew theoretically existed. That's a female deity of the dwarves. And one named Hashut. Hashut being the oldest brother of them all. The story in this case goes that Hashut saw the mortal realms, and he picked, as you would, being the big brother who has the entitlement to everything, the finest lands, including Chaman and Akshi. And his siblings, at a certain point, were like, this guy sucks. Let's get rid of him. And they basically started to plot against Hashut in a way of not so much like betrayal, but rather just manipulating. Like, buddy, you're wasting your time here. Why don't I take these crummy old realms of metal and fire and you go to this exotic, cool place called Gur? And they basically hyped him up into doing it to trick him. Basically like, oh man, we could never live in Gur. It would take someone way stronger than us to do that. You know, teasing him, getting him psyched. So he's like, you know what? Being the good big brother that I am, I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna go do that thing. I'm gonna go set up shop. I'm gonna tame the realm of beasts, because I'm cool. And he went and did that thing. He founded a new place called Zorn, or Zron. I can't remember if it's where the R is there, and it's a marvel. Okay, he has the place just excavated. The area is safe. It's secure. Huge fortresses in no time. And as a way of like celebrating his success, he invites his siblings over from the realms that he left. Right, realms of fire. It wasn't really made clear where Valea likes to hang out. She didn't have a realm kind of bespoke for her, which is interesting. But the 3 siblings come over to Gur, are hanging with him, loving the place, and then he takes them on a tour and shows them like, hey, these are my many wonders of Gur, and the things you could never do, and all that kind of stuff, right? Basically like playing up what they had laid down for him. and they turn their noses up at him. And basically the plot is a little vague, but the premise seems to be they looked around at these great miraculous wonders that he did as a god and were like, you cheated. There's no way you could have done all this. There's no way you could have gotten dwarves to motivated to do all this. You might have been practicing the art of putting souls inside of automata. Now, I'll pause there. That dwarves have always had a history of machines and wonderment and whatever with, all kinds of weird devices, and the idea of steam golems and stuff like that is not unheard of. But they were essentially accusing him of taking the souls of animals in Gur and jamming those into machines, which they all kind of agreed was kind of against the natural order of things. So they're calling him out. And he says, no way, I did not do that thing. He gets into a rage. Valea is able to calm things down. And things kind of seem chill for a smidge, until, as they are leaving, Grugni offhandedly says something really stupid, and essentially says, like, well, this is still nothing in compared to what I have going on in Chaman. And this absolutely enrages Hashut, who, instead of this time lashing out, just kind of sits there. Gets real mad about stuff. The worst kind of mad about stuff. And his solution is, well, if you're going to accuse me of this, if you're going to throw all these insults at me, then any promises I made to you are void. This is all built upon us working together, right? These agreements that we have or whatever, and all this civility is just because we agreed to it. So if you're going to be a tool, I'm not going to play. And so in his mind, the disregard and whatever, the disdain of his siblings freed him of any kind of moral obligation to them, which, is one of those moments where I kind of sympathize with the devil in all these books. And essentially says, well, if you're going to treat me like I'm this great rule breaker or whatever anyway, I might as well do it. Because if I did all this by playing by the rules, imagine what I could do with a bunch of automatons full of souls or whatever. And that sparked an idea. So Hashut goes to his big forge or his big mine rather in Urzorn and starts digging. And the only detail we get about this next bit is that somehow, he has the power of a god, it makes sense, he punched through to the realm of chaos, or tapped into it in some capacity, but essentially arrived in the realm of chaos and viewed it as, rather than like the flux of like souls and anarchy or whatever, he perceived it almost like a mine shaft full of ore and resources. So he got to work and learned how to craft this stuff into material. How do you make demon weapons? How do you make demon souls come to you? We would call it, binding and summoning and all that kind of stuff, but treating it like a resource. Eventually, when his siblings found out what were happening, they mounted a huge attack on him. I kind of yada-yada some stuff, but essentially he set up a trap for Grugni and Grimnir to get them out of the picture. This is the only explanation we have to why Grimnir and Grugni were tied up together at the start of the setting. And essentially it was that Hashut gave them trinkets to drive them insane individually, and then at one point Grugni realized what was going on and tied himself up. So anyway, little side plot there. That's a minor lore thing for those of us nerds who have been paying attention since day one and been like, this is unsatisfactory. Anyway. But we start off there. And then what is this? So we go forward. He basically detains Grimnir and Grugni. Valea brings an army to his doorstep. The two of them fight, and the book is purposefully very vague. It says, in an act that will not be repeated, Valea did something to Hashut that stopped him. Okay, it essentially shattered him. Not in the Grimnir way where his essence physically went into places, but something about on the god level broke him. And him and Valea disappeared simultaneously, which is why we don't see Valea. Again, the only account we have explaining these major lore things is the bad guy, which you can't trust, and I love that. At this point, the temple, or I should say the place Urzorn, is sacked, and it's all torn apart. The dwarves who lived there, Hashut's original followers, who learned with him and all this kind of stuff, were scattered to the wind. Essentially, you either died there or you became a refugee. They would run to other holds, just kind of like try to fade in and, oh yeah, orcs came over our place. It was the worst, and kind of fade into society or whatever. So they still like integrated themselves afterwards, hidden, of course, but those original dwarves were seen as the highest level of traitors. So there was like a death warrant on all of them. So these temples go out and they hide away. We then fast forward the clock. A bunch of other stuff's happening in the Age of Myth. And then right at the tail end, towards the Age of Chaos, things start to get rough. Or I should say, in the beginning of the Age of Chaos, things get rough. Dwarven holds are being smashed, leveled, 9 ways till Sunday. And some of those dwarves dig deep underground, trying to basically hold out. And in that desperate moment, there's a little more detail, but I'm trying to wrap this up to get to the game stuff. In that desperation, when they were kept digging deeper and deeper and deeper, a spirit spoke to them, saying, "Hey, you're my children. I know how to help you. I can help you." It started in Gur, of course, where some of those original Hashut temples existed amongst the old dwarven cities. Not all of them were destroyed. And then when things got desperate enough, people turned to these mystics and wise seers amongst the dwarves who happened to be basically refugees from Zorn who snuck in. And all of a sudden, the cult of Hashut is beginning to repopulate. Because these dwarves are trapped underground with no resources to fight their way out, they're desperate. Hashut provides a way to use demons to fight demons. It is because he's a dwarf helping his children. It's not perceived of as being demonic. You're using the demonic. And so that's how they got started with their plan to essentially start jamming demons into everything. Everything from their weapons. If you look here, this little ball on the end of the spear, that's a demon in it. And that motif shows up quite a bit in a lot of these things. This guy here, his big beer gut, which I respect, this is all full of demons. Inside the Torment Bombard, they are constantly loading screaming demon souls. Like this thing on the back is like a summoner. And imagine a demon gets sucked in here and then it fires out the cannon kind of a thing. That's what we're getting the idea of. So it's less... I mean, through using chaos stuff, they have been twisted into chaos figures, but they don't perceive it that way. They perceive it as using a new kind of material, which is really neat. Let's see. What can we do whilst these guys are drying? I guess we can keep going with some of the other infantry. Just get these bits out of the way. We'll chip away at the Despot. He's a fun guy. Okay, continuing my story. Took a breath there. So, now we have these dwarves in the Age of Chaos learning to survive again using demon souls to fight their way through demons. Eventually, they become such a raging pain in the butt that even characters like Archaon are forced to admit, man, we just really can't get rid of these guys. Like everything we throw at them, they just turn into ammunition, which is a problem. And essentially the way it works is they're brought into Archaon's grander chaos plans by providing him with weapons and arms and shields and armor and all that kind of stuff. The crazy good armor that is spoken about in every single Slaves to Darkness battle tome for the Everchosen and his, what are they called? Varengard. I don't know why that word was just escaping me. But all that's made by the Hellsmiths, not Archaon's armor. That's like an artifact or whatever. But the Varengard are basically custom gifted a set of super fancy armor whenever they rise to that stature, which is like a really cool thing. If I was gonna describe it in a way that existing GW fans would know, imagine if the Mechanicus served they basically serve the same role as the Mechanicus to Archaon. Arms, armor, ways of transportation. In exchange, we have a monicum of freedom in this otherwise total top-down authority regime. That kind of stuff. The point of this was first to survive, just like all the other Dwarven factions, right? The Karajan Overlords are a great comparison. The first mission was to survive. Then it kind of started to change from surviving to thriving. And the idea, or the grand motivation rather, behind the Chaos Dwarves is we're going to basically let Chaos run amok. It's going to be covered in demons and all that kind of stuff. And we, now knowing how to kill, capture, and use demons against each other, are just going to come up and mop up everything. And they had this grand long-term plan for just dominating the mortal realms once, chaos has ascended. Well, we naturally fight chaos and use it as a weapon. We'll just go walk out and wipe it all up at the greater end. Okay. So that's their mission statement, I guess. And they had been working towards that goal for centuries, and were in the process of it when things got real hairy. And by hairy, I mean grand rumblings underground, and then all of a sudden half of Axii just blew up. Not really half, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. A bunch of Axii just blew up because the Skaven, whom the Chaos Dwarves still very much hate, just because of their heritage. It's a generational thing. Dwarves hate Skaven. That's just seems to be a constant. The Skaven did the Skaven Doom, right? The big explosion in Axii or whatever. And that essentially just moved the timetable up for what they wanted to do. And that's why we're seeing them now. They were in long-term preparations for this cataclysmic assault on the surface, as if they're like the mole men coming up for vengeance. And then when the Skaven kicked things off and the Hour of Ruin began, essentially a Varanguard came to them and was like, you're going to equip us with weapons, and if you want any of this while this is going down, you better send troops. Like, you better go claim it. And the leaders of the various Hashut temples were like, good point. We're not going to we're not just going to cede all of this stuff to the Skaven, so that is why we are seeing them now, because now they are marching with Archaon's armies in artillery support roles, making deals to claim lands and resources, because of course you still got to have other stuff to build your weapons with. And all of that biz. Trying to think of anything else. They got some cool sub-factions that are really just different iterations on why and how they live in various environments. I think lore-wise, that's a pretty good synopsis. Oh, that guy Thank you so much, buddy. Curse Grugni, Grimnir, Valea, and the rest. Traitors to the glorious Bullfather. I love it. I love it. Let's see. Any info on Orak Tar? Other than he was supposed to be one of the original people sitting at the feet of Hashut himself. Not terribly much at the moment. He is in control of the biggest of the cities, I guess, temple cities. What do they call them? It's not a citadel. Maybe it is. I don't know. I can't remember. Ziggurat. That's the word I'm looking for, not temple. Okay. I don't know why. I was like, it's right there. It had a whole day of that. Ideas right in front of you. Oh, I'm going to give you some little chainmail booties, because that's what he's walking around in. Okay, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to answer some questions in the chat. Please fire them away. Story time has paused. I'm going to the paint time to dry, and we'll jump into the next one here. How many head options come with the infantry? I'm trying to maximize beards. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say there's like 14-ish heads in the box. I don't know. So I have my 10 here, and I had a couple extra to do on the other ones. There are like I think 2 or 3 beardless, like meaning they're female dwarves, which there are several in this faction, which is cool. But like I'm trying to remember the exact number. Are they in here? No, they're not. It was probably like 12 to 14 heads. I maximized beards on all of mine. The only head you can't, well, not that you can't, but the bullhead, he does have a beard, I just realized, but I thought he was kind of his own thing. Yeah. Okay, what do we got? This will be my new obsession. No, I know about the Dark Mechanicum. I was trying to relate it because this is AOS. I'm like, it sort of has the same role that the Mechanicum related to the Imperium does if the Imperium was Archaon. But yeah, I think you guys got it. Favorite aspect of the Hellsmiths lore? For me, it is the fact that the bad guys have the only account that explains so many different conundrums in the lore. Meaning, I adore the fact that they are the only ones with the answers to the questions of how Grugni and Grimnir got the way they were. And they don't want to talk about it because, one, they're deeply ashamed, right? So they don't even want to counter the story that's being put out there because that would deign to address it. Which is like, you gotta answer for your sins, bro. I don't know what to say, dude. I really like that aspect, that there's just this whole side story out there where it seems completely reasonable and plausible. He also explains how Grimnir ended up so suicidally crazy. It was something that Hashut did. I kind of glossed over that, but yeah, basically he sabotaged him. Yeah, I don't know. I love it. Trying to think of other things that I thought were really interesting. They kind of detailed, and I glossed over this, but they detailed essentially how the first Hellsmiths got started in trapping souls. Essentially, they hid in their deepest, treasure coves or whatever, wherever other loot was as dwarves, and blew out the floor underneath them to just kill whatever demons they easily could while they were hiding. They were like, hey, let's just go out swinging kind of a thing. Like, let's just blow the floor, see what happens. It's all done anyway. Which is like, kind of a fatalistic thing. Hitting self-destruct. But what happened was when the floor dropped, because the floor was lined with a bunch of runes, when it came down, it crushed the demons in a different way that they had ever done before, and that's when they first experienced the material of demon stuff. It was that stuff. Whatever was left over from the runes crushing demons was essentially the equivalent of the first person who figured out that ether gold could keep a boat in the sky. I mean, and that's, they really are written and described in a way like innovation saved them the same way that they saved the Carriage and Overlords. But it just looks different because their materials brought them to different places and their experiences with the deities. Part of why the Chaos Dwarves are so angry and eager to come back is because in the last big narrative arc, Grugni reappeared. He disappeared for a long time, and they were like, he's back? Oh, no. I'm gonna go pick a fight with his kids and draw him out, kind of a thing. Like, that's their idea of a good time, which I'm not mad about. They effectively accidentally made a demon piston. Essentially, yes, that was the idea that you get, where you crush down and then the energy came out. And they were like, huh, what about that? And one of the things, just to end the question of like what I like about the lore, I love that they are written very much like the Carriage and Overlords. This is a survival story, and this is how they survived. And it just doesn't look fun. It all looks kind of bad. different shades of brown. Let's see. Did you enjoy the build experience? Very much, more so than many of the more modern models that they have sent me. Like, if you guys watched the stream where my spirit broke on camera as I was building the new Saturnine Terminators, and I just put it down and I was like, no. By comparison, these things were a freaking dream. The Dominator engine is also a bit like the Wicker Man. Exactly. Yep. No, it definitely is sort of a Wicker Man look. I completely agree. With the flames roaring out of the gut and everything. Any info on the distinct or different Chaos Dwarfs, Metropolis, and Ziggurats? Do they fight and play different? I mean, so in this edition of AOS, they kind of moved away from making the sub-factions unique rules-wise. Every sub-faction can take every one of the, available, what do they call them? Army types? I'm sorry, I'm out of words here. Let me get my book here. As far as which of them sound interesting, there are some really cool ones. We only got 4, but let's see. Wait a minute. It's the big fold-out thing. Dang it. There's like 2 fold-out pages, and normally they are constantly bursting out of the booklet, and for some reason now I can't seem to grip them. Here we go, okay. So we have, here we go. I'm just gonna pivot this and then pull it back so I don't get paint on it. The Forge Anathema, which is the one that I'm building mine off of. They are based in Akshi, right near the Gnaw, where the Skaven are breaking through. The Urzorn are in Gur. That's the original fanatical sect. The Zarviksa. They are in... looks like Shyish, the Sea of Drowned Souls. Sea of Drowned Sorrows. And then the last one is Muspelzar. And they are out of Chamon. I think they all sound pretty dang cool. How many paints are needed for a good one? Honestly, if you stick with mostly metals like I'm doing, probably 6 or 7, depending on if you include washes and what kind of color you want to have on there to pop, but not much. I mean, I'm not planning on doing a ton. I don't play a ton of AOS lately. I've just been really enjoying painting and building these guys. What questions am I reading? I am reading them from the chat. It's just sometimes my chat jumps around. So if I miss your question, please go ahead and ask again. I'm reading the ones that I see. I was putting the Saturnine together the week, and while they certainly weren't great to assemble, thankfully I didn't seem to have the level of issues you did. Yeah, you know. I have no trouble admitting it's a user error. Let's see. Noted for my scheme for Hellsmith is way too bloated. You can be as complicated as you want. If you look at the I'll go up here. If you look at the Warhammer community article where they shared a bunch of them from various community members, mine is up there, but if you look at the other ones, like there's a whole wide array of people who put in enormous effort. But for me personally, like those articles are more helpful when they reflect what people are actually going to see on the table. So that's why mine are typically, I just don't put the amount of work in that I would into something else. I don't know. I have random Horus Heresy minis that I painted much harder, but I think that's the point. These are highly accessible models. You can have a really sharp looking army with very little work. It's good. The only pain in the butt is going to be Hobgrots, but my plan for Hobgrots, get this, dip them in Plague Bearer green skin contrast, shake them off, and then take, don't really, but just apply that to the skin, and then just do browns on the clothes, give it a wash, done. So, I mean, I already did it to one. I have my little mechanic guy that was supposed to go on the cannon team. I just decided not to, because he's optional. It's all optional. It's great. So anyway, back to the scheduled show. Let's see. My planned color scheme, as I said before, I have it right here. This is my boy. It is a subsidiary. I'm putting it as of the Forge Anathema. They have purple, so obviously you can see the cloaks are purple, but most of their weapons have a bunch too. And I was like, nah, I kind of like the wrought metal look. Did I already miss the lore for the Dominator engine? I didn't go into it specifically yet. It's him. The only real information we get is that dwarves have used automatons for quite a while, and that at a certain point, once Hashut had kind of usurped the original temples, they went from just being tools of industry, like working in places where dwarves couldn't, you know, almost like drones equivalents of, you know, going and mining in areas that are too dangerous for us. They kind of started to use them for war because more dwarves were dying and the demons were creeping in. And then once they figured out how to put demons inside of stuff, it was a natural conclusion for the Doominator, as I call him, because he looks like a Doom Bull, was put into service. So that's the basic idea. There's not anything specific, and what I like about that is third-party artists and stuff can make different kinds of heads or attachments, and you can have a series of totally unique Dominators that are all, I mean, they're all the same war scroll, right? But just have it look visually distinct, I think, is important. Same thing with Chaos Bonds. Games Workshop has incredible kits for Chaos Bonds, without a question. But by definition of what it is, it can look like anything. So if you have something you're looking for, just do it. Let's see. What have you been playing most lately? Honestly, nothing. I've been doing a ton of work helping my wife with her business and just, you know, living La Vida Loca that way. However, the most accessible game to me, and the one that I'm going to go play tomorrow, as a matter of fact, is Heresy. I've just been having so much stinking fun with Heresy, covering it, talking about it. Brush is kind of falling apart. I have a couple of like brushes that exist simply to jam into nooks and crannies, so I gotta find the right one of those. I feel that I haven't gotten a game in a month or so. Yeah, I've just been busy. And I know that if I go to a local AOS game night, I have to go and get the new GHB, because they mostly play competitive style stuff. I just can't be bothered. My wife and I learned a new phrase watching Love Island UK, which is "I can't be arsed," which is just my favorite combination of words in the greater English language. That's kind of how I feel. Let's see. Are the Cool Boys mentioned at all, considering their history with the Hellsmiths? Yes and no. they're not like directly stated to have like a ton of lore with them or whatever. However, they both use Hobgrots as intermediaries. The cruel boys could see these boys are tricksy. They don't typically like dwarves, but they like stuff. They like shiny gubbins. And the Hellsmiths early saw them as a potential client in, at least in favor of working with chaos stuff in the beginning, or at least had a mutual enemy. And so the Hobgrots got a chance to work with both sides, kind of acting as runners, intermediaries. And then that relationship just kind of continued because there's always a bunch of cruel boy clans who are more than happy just to beat up a couple Hobgrots just to feel better about themselves. And so they run away, and then some of them end up at the Hellsmiths because they have jobs and food and whatever, and they're pressed into labor there. So nothing like formal, just that there is this relationship where they used to trade, and then the Hobgrots sort of as a diminutive species got kind of mixed in. And they are sort of a species that depends on having a big ally to go beat up your enemies. And they just kind of oscillate between who's better at beating up people who beat up Hobgrots. Is it cruel boys or is it the dwarves? Vanished for a second. Did my question get answered? Okay. Oh, I didn't see your second question. Here we go. Does the battle tome include examples of different flames, such as these Helsmiths did X to their flames and ended up... Oh, like does it explore in lore-wise why the flames might look different? Or do you mean like a painting tutorial? I just want to make sure I understand the question. If I recall, I can pop the book open here in a second. I think there is a painting tutorial section. I think it's mostly about the green flames. But no, I didn't see anything in the lore about, like... They really didn't get into the minutia of the process, which I thought was a missed opportunity. Unless they talked about it in like a short story that I just didn't read yet. I'm gonna have actual red flames. I don't want the demonic fire. I want this to look like he's a coal-powered warjack from War Machine. Okay. So I talked a lot about the lore. We talked a bit about like lore examples. No, nothing like that. Sorry, friend. So let's talk about gameplay. Okay. You are a war despot. Your job is to go out and pick a fight with everybody, claim some territory that you think might be useful, and desecrate the lands. Desecrate the lands being the important one there. At the start of any turn, if you have Hellsmiths of Hashut units that are not in combat and contesting an objective, you can defile that objective. You just need a little token to mark it. I plan on making some fun ones. And then, at the start of your turn, and then at the start of the turn, rather, essentially, you're going to count up how many of these desecrated tokens are out there, give yourself a demonic power point for each one of them, assign them to your units for that turn. The more, just as a generalized statement, the more demonic power points a unit has, the better it is at doing things. So priests and wizards can do their stuff further. Guns can annihilate stuff. All the guns do different things when they have different demonic power points or whatever. But essentially, yeah, you're desecrating the land, turning that into demonic influence, and then putting that right back into the machine as you summon more demons to the battlefield. So what this means is, as the game goes on, your forces will be able to deliver more and more punishment as you desecrate the battlefield more and more and more. Downside to this being, terrain is destroyable. Deal with it. What else? You also have a command ability. For a command point, you can give a unit that has less than 3 demonic power points 2, is what I believe it is. But essentially, for a command point, you can pick someone and be like, Pacha, blessings of the Lord upon thee. And they get 2 demonic power points. The game then, and the reason I describe it like War Machine and Hordes, let's come up here just for a quick second, let that paint dry. The reason I describe this like War Machine and Hordes is at the beginning of that game, you receive a number of focus equal to your focus stat, and then you assign it to the various warjacks or spellcasters under your command. And you have to think about like, okay, what do I need to accomplish this turn? And then you allocate resources to accomplish it. This is the exact same principle. You're going to go out in your turn and your opponent's, because it's just the beginning of a turn. You're going to go desecrate some terrain, collect demonic power points at the start of your turn, decide where do they need to be? What do I need to kill? And then look at the units on the table and assign your demonic power points, including the command point one, to execute that plan. So that's the idea. I find that thrilling because I'm somebody who plays... I started with War Machine Horde, so maybe it's just I got used to the, well, let's just see where the chips fall, and at the start of my turn, I have to figure out a way out of this, like it's a puzzle. As opposed to the more back and forth of other factions where you're a little bit more engaged turn to turn. So that's basically the idea. What is heresy? Horus heresy. Yes, Horus heresy. Let's see. Trying to think of anything else that's really important there. Beyond that, it's just a matter of it's a faction with very few units overall. You have a couple centerpiece models. By centerpiece, I mean like things that can anchor is probably a better word than centerpiece because it has a different connotation. But like tough things that can just sit there. You have a big blob of infantry. These guys are not easy to shift. Your basic infantry, when it's on an objective, can give a unit nearby a demonic power point on a 3-up. So you're incentivized to take these guys to guard your equipment, which is great. Yeah, that's an overview. I'm going to leave it there for the overview. If you have specific questions regarding characters and kind of what they do or whatever, please drop it in the comments. But essentially, that's the overarching idea. Go out there, corrupt the lands, and then at the start of your turn, based on what you've been able to corrupt, that's the resources you have to do your thing. Now, they don't seem... like, none of the war scrolls in a vacuum are very scary. But when you can do stuff like demonic power points, adding rend to guns, or defensive measures to heroes, like a ward save, it gets kind of nuts. So I like it quite a bit. What happened to re-rolling ones? The rule or the channel? The channel, everyone just got busy. We were friends hanging out. We still chat almost daily. It just, Brett moved a little bit further away. And everyone is just busy. Mark has about 5,000 kids. Shoe, rather. And, yeah. Jack's just out there working hard, being an awesome dad. Living life. La vida loca. But they are doing very well, so I will pass along that people care. Which sub-faction is strong in the Chaos Dwarves book? So let's take a look here before I crack open the next paint, since it's so pertinent to what we were just talking about. Heyo! Oh, you can see my Fallout Wasteland Warfare stuff in the top corner. Blah, 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 blah. I want to talk about faction rules. Battle formations. These are the new sub-factions. Let's talk through them here. Hashutite host, each friendly Hellsmith Hashut infantry. Actually, let me just give you a broad here. Pick a kind of model, and there's a sub-faction that buffs it. So if you're going to ask me what's objectively good, tell me what model you like the most of. Because you have one that is about infantry, one that's about war machines, one that buffs wizards, and one that is the Bullfather's Horns, which is your I don't know what the proper name for them is now. But your centaur dudes. What is that proper name? Bull centaurs. I was thinking anointed sentinels. I was like, it's like sentinels? No. But basically they're all just centered around getting the most out of a specific unit type. For infantry, they all get a better rally command when you consider that your basic infantry are one of the main ways that you can get demonic power points on a 3-up. That's interesting. Experimental munitions add 1 to the attack characteristic of ranged weapons if they have 3 demonic power points. And I will say that these all the battle formations are equal in the sense of they only matter if you have 3 demonic power points. So it requires you to take the unit you like and then put them in a position to do something good for any sub-faction to matter at all. So, like, you know, that's cool. For me personally, I like troops. Yes, +1 to the attack characteristic if they have 3 demonic power points. If you do the Bulls of the Hornfather, which is kind of the one that I think sounds the most fun because of how I play Warhammer, add 2 inches to the move characteristic of friendly Hashut cavalry and monsters while they have 3 demonic power points. Now here is the fun thing about that. We have our bull centaurs, right? Add 1 to the charge rolls for this unit for each demonic power point it has. That is a separate rule that for no unseen reason would not stack. So if they have 3 demonic power points, you're getting 3 inches from here and 2 inches from here. That's nifty. That's probably the only, I mean, other than like, you know, guns always want more attacks, but like in terms of what a unit's unique abilities are and lending into that, that's a cool one. Same thing goes for the Anointed Sentinels, but I'm not as big a fan of them. But yeah. Roll a dice for each model in this unit. Add the number of demonic power points it has for each 6-up and inflicts immortal. Yeah, so if you have 3, you get +2 inches, plus you increase this. I don't know, it's just a lot. It's a lot of cool things. And the last thing I wanted to see... I wish that rule had included automatons, but it doesn't. It's cavalry and monsters. Bummer. Which actually, what monster? Oh, the monster is the big bull monster. Okay, so it does affect the giant bull mount. Yeah. Okay. I mean, 2 inches. I mean, if you want to have a guy who has melee or whatever, that could be really cool. Because if you give him 3, he goes up to a 4-up ward against spells and prayers and manifestations, and a 5-up ward. So you could just get into melee with this kind of weapon profile and mess things up. So anyway, that one's there. And then the last one is for wizards and priests. Add 1 to the casting and unbinding and banishment rolls while they have 3. So, yeah. For some reason, Hashut stands out the most for me. Fave artwork from the book. I know exactly what piece I'm looking for. Let me show you my runner-up. That right there is Hashut's mouth and whatever maw coming out of the fiery volcano. But the best piece is... Hold on. It was in the preview copy they sent me, but not... I haven't seen it in the layout version. I think they sent me like a reviewer's version, which wasn't the same. Oh yeah, it is right here. So right here in the beginning, we have the Doom Bullinator, who's backhanding a Caradron Overlord ship balloon, while legions of Zardron march towards, and this is a Caradron Overlords being carried away by a Fire Slayer. So this whole thing is the most epic kinsman battle ever perceived. We are one sad dwarf from Cities of Sigmar away from this being like a family portrait. This was my favorite. When they sent me the digital copy to start doing notes or whatever forever ago, not forever ago, that wasn't I sound like a kid, just exaggerating. But when they sent it to me, this is one of the first pages that, like, as I was scrolling, I just left it there for a while, and I was like, daggum, man, that's a good piece of art. I want this on my wall. This is like, This is the history of a people in one picture, because all three of them were spawned from the same result, which is what happens when the dwarves got rolled over during the Age of Chaos. And all three of them are just hyper unique responses that make them individually interesting fantasy factions. And I loved it. That was the best. Gripping and clawing itself across the KO ship. Yes. Do you actually destroy the terrain or just put a token down, like remove the terrain? So in the game, you can destroy terrain, which way you remove it, but for the purposes of their ability of desecrating it, it's just a token. Like, so at the start of my turn, if I'm near a piece of terrain, I just put a token on it, and that counts as being desecrated. My opponent, if they want to throttle my demonic power points, can destroy it, but otherwise it just gets ignored. Yeah, okay. I feel like that answered those questions. Yeah, I did a good job answering questions. Good job, Doug. All right, so we're back here with Copper. Is the Chaos books and figures out now, or when do they release? So they go on pre-order next weekend, which is why I'm allowed to talk about them now. And my understanding, they don't tell us a lot of the actual like release dates and sales and stuff. My understanding is that this is just the release of the army box, and that the actual individual kit boxes will come later. I don't have a confirmation on that. I have to wait. You also planning on using those old War Machine focus tokens? I definitely could. No, I'm gonna make my own fancy set of 25 mils, I think. Also planning on using the... How do the transfers look? You know what? Mine are like really far away. I have not really looked at them very much. But I remember them looking very crisp. I mean, Games Workshop, in my opinion, always makes great transfers. Let's see. Anybody have any other questions before I jump into pontificating about a few ideas on the army? I'll leave it open for just a second as an open forum. But essentially, the army it's looking good. I think it's going to... It is not an army for every occasion. I don't think it's going to be, if you're a competitive type, a 5-0 army. I could be wrong. I'm sure someone's going to break this wide open, and I'm going to be totally wrong, looking like a dingus. But the truth is, I think the average player is going to grab them, and they just play a different game than AOS plays. A lot of other factions do, I should say, where you just... Everything is dependent on these resources more so than even like noble deed points, because that's essentially turning your guy into a totem right, of a buff aura, and then putting them where you need them to be. And that's really great. It's different when at the start of the turn you can pick somebody to be the totem, so to speak. Here, bring you in further. I just joined, but favorite lore so far. Accidentally learning how to use demons as a weapon by dropping a roof on them. It is the equivalent of like Rick and Morty when they're like, I don't know, man, party and they get travel to another dimension, and then the party just continues. They're like, oh man, this is terrible. Keep it going, and everyone's just having a great time. It is essentially that. If you're just joining me, you can rewind the video to go to the beginning. I walked through how to magnetize everything. It's very, very simple. This is the easiest army to build and magnetize. And I deeply appreciate how easy it seems to be to get a good looking force on the table. And for those of us just joining me, again, another thank you to GW for sending me this advanced copy. I have thoroughly enjoyed reading the book and stuff. It's been cool. I mean, I didn't know anything about Chaos Dwarves in the old world. I had read I did the Tomerkin's lore thing. I had talked about them in one video, but you know, they weren't like a staple of my gaming memories or whatever, like they are for some folks who remember the line. But it was just a really cool read. One question that I had that the book really doesn't directly state, I was like, okay, but why is he a bull? Right? Like, cool. I love the curveball of him being the oldest brother of Grimnir and Grogny, but they're decidedly not bulls. So why is he a bull? And the answer seems to be that while he was in Gur, so he got shattered by Valea, but before that, he actually drove away a group of essentially god beast level bulls from Gur, which makes sense. They would be there. But he always really respected them. And so as he was reconstituting himself in the realm of beast, it's kind of just the form he took. I was like, you know, that's even a better explanation than most things, I guess. I don't know. I was just like, kind of buried it. I feel like maybe a little more exposition could have been given as to why the dwarf man's a bull. But then I think it got cemented into their society because even though dwarves are resistant to magic and mutations and stuff like that, it does happen eventually, and they started to take on centaur-like aspects. You know, you have, or Tauron-like aspects. So you have, you know, bull noses, the tusks that they grow. Basically, you know, what is a chaos dwarf? What else? Bull centaurs are aberrant mutants, but where most mutants are snuffed away and killed quietly, these ones are allowed to exist because they look like the boss. Any info about the Chaos Dwarf Spearhead box? What's in it? I think this is it. I might be wrong. Let me double check here in a second. If I'm not mistaken, this is the actual box. That would be a unit of infantry, a cannon, a Dominator, and a Despot. Yeah, this is it. So I don't know when it's going to come out on its own without the book, but the Spearhead is, yeah, this exact box. So pre-order today. I guess. Any thoughts on Great Horned Rat and Hashut being set up as chaos rivals? Not distinctly. They didn't have any like dialogue against one another or whatever, but I do like the idea of the pantheon becoming more complex with this tier of, even if you want to call them minor gods, I mean, like, minor gods still mattered a heck of a lot to the Greeks. So, just that it's the realm of chaos is, you know, it's diversifying. It's getting a little crowded, and I like that. Other than hating the Skaven, there's not really anything specific about the Hellsmiths when it comes to this Great Horned Rat. So it's nice to know that if they ever wrote a book with Grugni, they could at least agree on one thing. Gotta start killing all these Skaven. I do hope the Hellsmiths are added to the AIOS tabletop RPG, since that's getting a Champions of Chaos book. Yes, I might have some words on that at a certain point. Let's see. Because he was a bull in Warhammer Fantasy. Well, I knew that, but I just meant they had to explain it. Yeah. No, I had known that, and I had the most Hashut stuff that I had ever listened to was actually Tom Lyons on Warhammer Weekly complaining about the bull motif on the Lumineth Realm Lords, and he's like, that should have been Hashut. I was like, who was that guy? And then enjoyed his TED Talk thesis statement on it. But it was very interesting. I mean, like, I still don't know how the Lumineth got the bull thing as well, but here we are, you know. I know I read the book, but I wanted to hear about a dwarf turning into a bull. Let's see. Do the hands look magnetizable? Yes. I guess we're getting a whole bunch of new folks in here. Yeah, so at the beginning of the stream, I went through and showed off the magnetization options. All you have to do, this hole right here, is actually hollow when you get the model. And the arms come in such a way as that there's 2 pegs in there, and you're supposed to like clip them in there. So all I did was, with a pair of hobby clippers, clip out the pegs. I put a magnet on one side and a magnet inside the hole. And nope, I can't see depth when I'm holding at this angle. Sorry, I'm looking through my computer lens, but yes, it pops right on there. Yep, no shaking, because the peg space is not very big, so you just cut to size, and all of a sudden you guys' arms are interchangeable very, very easily. Same goes for the bombardier cannon top thing. Very, very easy to work with. I was hoping they would mix up the design a little more than they did, specifically bull centaurs. They look like they could have walked straight out of the... Yeah, you know, they do look more dynamic in terms of their posing and stuff, by way of just not having to be on a rank and flank base, but I understand your meaning. I am curious to see how big they are. Like, I mean, obviously you can see pictures online or whatever, but you know, some models just seem too small when you have them in your hand. I'm curious if they're going to feel that way. Because it's just 3 little guys, right? That's that's essentially what I would view that whole tactic of just launching them at the enemy, right? Getting all that speed up, but when they get there, they're just little guys. So that's why I just don't feel as though these sub-factions are the same level of utility for this army that they are for others. Like, meaning the active time that you're going to have your ability on for the game is probably not terribly much of the game. It's just a matter of how you want to plan to deliver the killing blow. Haven't you considered that? Yeah, they feel too small. That would be really disappointing. Yeah, they shouldn't be gore gruntas, right? They're just dwarfs with a little mix them up on the bottom half, but like, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen them in person. I'm really more interested in... I mean, I do think this army will be taken regularly as a ally detachment, the Regiment of Renown or whatever it is, because that's artillery, man. And there's not a Chaos army, barring maybe Skaven, who would not dramatically improve by having access to some good shooting. Some good shooting. Meet me a warlord who doesn't want a good gun. I think... What is their Regiment of Renown? Let me check here. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to put one of these final bands here as copper, because I think it was a little bit of pop. Also, after you pre-ordered your Hellsmiths of Hashut, everyone should go play Fallout 76. Yeah, their new camp building update, and I think it's how they're going to do camp building in the future games. The whole new UI and stuff. Very interesting. Very interesting to see what they might be cooking. So what I'm thinking of doing, obviously I'm going to have the flames are going to be the real bright spots of color. And I'm going to have this symbol, because it is sort of an icon, be gold, like instead of copper. And then do all the washes or whatever, and then come back up and build up the reds and the whatever growing out of it. So I'm excited for these guys. I think I'm going to go ahead and pop off here. I'm at an hour and a half. My voice is starting to get a little bit sore, but thank you so much for hanging out with me as we went through the battle tome together. If you have future questions, I'm going to be doing more videos and in-depth lore this coming week, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, GW, for showing off my model that I painted. I had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. And I hope that the rest of you will hang out and enjoy my War Machine antics in this game, because I love what GW did with their playstyle. It's not War Machine. Make that abundantly clear. But the way that they use the table and the mechanics of accruing a resource and then distributing it is really, really neat in the Age of Sigmar kind of format. So thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed them, and I'll catch you in a very, very soon video. Happy wargaming.